Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
This episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast with Jordan and Mary Richards is brought to you by Compassion International. For more information about how you can release a child from poverty, go to compassion.com/sportsspectrum. It's $38 a month, a tax-deductible donation, but really it's more than that. It's you helping release a child from poverty. Think about that. Children across the world stuck in situations that, for many of them and their families, feel hopeless. But you and I can come in and help release that child from poverty. Food, education, medical care, vocational training, the basic necessities that every child deserves can come through your donation, through your sponsorship with Compassion International. Go to compassion.com/sportsspectrum and consider sponsoring a child today. Today on the podcast, we welcome Jordan and Mary Richards. I love these guys. Jordan Richards is a strong safety in the NFL with the Oakland Raiders, signed with Oakland on April 5th, 2019. Last year, he played with the Atlanta Falcons, played 15 games, had 12 starts, and had a pretty good year, probably his best year from a statistical standpoint in his short 4-year NFL career. But he had an interesting journey because it was a year ago, August 31st, 2018, just a couple days before the season was to start. Jordan was traded from the New England Patriots to the Atlanta Falcons. So Jordan, all he had known his first 3 seasons was playing with the New England Patriots. He was a member of 2 Super Bowl teams, including a championship team, Super Bowl 51, when the Patriots beat the Falcons, and then the Super Bowl the following year when the Patriots and Eagles played, and the Eagles reigned victorious. Jordan was a member of that Patriots team that lost as well. So he's been on both sides of the ball in the biggest game there is in the Super Bowl with the Patriots. He has a ring and knows what it means to be a part of a championship team, to have a Super Bowl ring. So we had Jordan on the podcast, but getting to know Jordan, we also got to know his wife, Mary, at a couple conferences we've been at. And Mary is just a ball of energy. She's so much fun, just always so positive, and has such a great smile and such a great zest for life. And Jordan's a little bit quieter, certainly loves the Lord and is as good of a dude as you will ever meet in the NFL. But Mary is sort of the livelier of the two. But I loved having them both on together. And we talked a lot about that dynamic of husband and wife, about Jordan's career in the NFL, and even some really cool news that has changed the trajectory of their life and how they're going to be living, let's just say in about 7 months or so, as they begin their life together, not only as husband and wife, but maybe even more than that. And Mary's got a nice sports background as well, having grown up in Alaska and had a scholarship offer to play hockey in college, and then had some setbacks there. Ended up going to Syracuse University on a rowing scholarship, and then was a personal trainer for some college teams. So she's involved in the sports world as well and knows this world pretty well. It was a treat. It really was. In person, which is always my favorite thing to do, at a conference for hockey players, ironically, in Park City, Utah. I was able to sit down with Jordan and Mary Richards and hear their story, and I know you'll love hearing it too. This is Jordan and Mary Richards on Sports Spectrum's podcast. Take a listen. And we are pleased to be joined here in person on the Sports Spectrum podcast by Jordan and Mary Richards. Guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Glad to be here.
It's good to have you here. I love that we're doing this in person. That's always my favorite thing to do with this podcast, is to tape them in person. And your story is awesome. I mean, we're taping this at a conference here in Utah, and riding over yesterday and being able to kind of chat with you and hear both of your stories. I'm excited to kind of enter in here and see where the Lord takes this conversation. But let's start with you, Jordan, because right now you are officially a member of the Oakland Raiders, coming from New England and then Atlanta. and now the Raiders, and you signed in early April. Tell us what it's been like these last few months, just going through OTAs and minicamp and going back to California.
Yeah, back in California. So grew up in Sacramento, went to school at Stanford, and then went as far possible east to New England.
Yes.
And so spent some time there, Atlanta, and now back in California. So it's been a fun ride, and obviously getting to do that with Mary has been even more fun. And just there's certain challenges we've experienced and tons of growth along the way. But in terms of being in Oakland, really excited for what this year has to offer in the 2 months that we've had since April, and just getting to know the guys. And being there for an off-season program where we have time to, not only train with one another, but, time in the facility, time away from the facility, get to go to church with folks and just meet people, meet their families, meet their wives. That's been something that we've been really appreciative of.
Did being traded right before the season last year from New England to Atlanta kind of prepare you so that making this decision to go to Oakland wouldn't have been, it's not as much an adjustment, I guess, in terms of having to go to a new city and a new team with 6 days notice, basically?
Yeah, and being traded was just an experience for both of us in terms of finding out the time elapsed between when we were then on a plane to Atlanta. But to be able to see how it's done elsewhere was something I think it was certainly a good growth opportunity for us, and to see world outside of Foxborough and Patriots, and I'm so appreciative of my time in New England, but to have the opportunity to play elsewhere and see a new whole group of guys and be a part of Atlanta's team was something that was a challenge in a number of ways, showing up 5 days before the first game, but it's something I think God certainly grew us in and wanted us to meet people and to try and invest as best we could with the new group.
Mary, you're now in Oakland. You're a football playing wife, as they say, and that's always, it doesn't just affect Jordan in his journey. It always comes with, when you're married, with the wife as well. What's it been like from your perspective on this sort of journey that you've been on really in the last 9 months or so, right?
It's definitely it's something you hear about, like you've heard, like, okay, well, you get traded, you move teams, you hear about it, but you don't know if it's going to be you this year, next year, 5 years from now. And so I think for us, it was definitely what God wanted for our relationship, and like kind of just starting as a young married couple, going into a new place where all we knew was each other, and I think that was the best thing for us. And so and, I love traveling, so I just use it as an opportunity to see different places in the country and, see where we want to live someday and call home. And I love California. I'm definitely a California girl from Alaska, so I'm a West Coast girl anyways. So California is definitely where my heart is.
Jordan, go back to last year, and we alluded to the trade and being traded from New England to Atlanta. New England's all you had known. You were drafted by them, second-round draft pick, and suddenly you're in Atlanta, and it's right before the season starts. And you told me about sort of the process of being traded, being told you're being traded, but then having to jump on a plane, having to acclimate yourself to a new team, and then get ready for a season with a brand new group of people that you weren't even around the entire offseason with. Take us through that moment when you were traded, and then what that was like trying to adjust to being a Falcon.
Yeah, I mean, being traded, it's after the last preseason game, which I played in. So I knew I was kind of, on the bubble there. So, the folks in New England called me into the office and sat down with Coach, and he said that they were trading me. And then kind of the addendum to that was that they play in the first game on Thursday night. So like they want you there as quickly as possible.
Right.
So in my head, I was like, okay, maybe by this evening. And when I ended up talking with the folks in Atlanta, we're going to try and get you on the 2 o'clock flight. And at that time, it was maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock. And literally, I said, bye to some of the guys that were in the facility in New England at the time, and got to say, thanks to a lot of my coaches in New England. But from there, I grabbed my trash bag of my stuff and got in the car and drove my 20 minutes home, and on the way told Mary that we got traded. Whatever clean clothes I have left, put them in a bag, and they got a seat for you too, so we'll go out there. And I tell everybody this, but there is a whole lot of truth to it in terms of leaving dishes in the dishwasher, clothes in the dryer, and we just left the cars where they were and got on a plane and showed up in Atlanta. And it was, it was an adventure. And at the same time, going to Atlanta, I'm looking at the roster. It's like I'd only played with, I think, Austin Hooper from college. And that was the only guy I knew on the team that had, personal, relationship with. So even then, just it's a whole new group of guys I got to know over the course of the year. And, I'm excited for that team as, even though I am in Oakland.
Yeah, of course.
I'm excited for the growth that hopefully Atlanta has this year, and hopefully some of those guys that, as the season went on, some injuries happened, and it was a tough year, but I'm excited for that team for this year, hopefully.
I think most people don't realize that your journey and your story is very, I don't want to say common, but it's more of the norm, certainly. I think, for NFL players than the glamorous jobs, if you will, that we see of the quarterback that's been there. For example, the quarterback you play with for a few years, like Tom Brady's been there 18 years and just solid and blah, blah, blah. He's locked in. But a lot of it is really working year to year, a lot of uncertainty. That's hard on a marriage. How did you guys manage that early on? I'm going to look at Mary first on this one. How did you manage that early on? Because you're sort of newlyweds. Yeah. It's been almost 2 years.
Newlyweds.
And just knowing that you're getting into this uncertainty that is the NFL.
Well, I think you just said it there, and I think you know what you're getting yourself into. And our team chaplain with New England always said, God doesn't make mistakes, and he, what he brought together is good, and that's us, and that's our marriage, and that definitely comes first. No matter what, home is where your husband is, in my opinion. So it's like wherever he goes, you just kind of go and you make light of the situation. And I've noticed that no matter what team we end up on, God brings people to encourage. He brings mentors to have. He brings couples, former players that are living in the area that want to mentor you. And if you're willing to look for that, and it's definitely, you have to look for it. And you put yourself out there and, sacrifice your times. But that was how kind of we've started our marriage, is just, we know that it's important to meet with older couples that have been there, done that, and they want to encourage us through the hard things, the conversations. And it's been, honestly, I haven't really thought of it as being hard, as more of it's just an adventure that God is like totally leading, because there's no way that we could ever plan this out. So that's kind of how I see it. I know that Jordan does a good job at just making me feel like I'm a part of his world. And a lot of times we as women aren't really welcome to do a lot with them, whether it's professional or it's all business, and we're kind of the opposite of that. So it's just like when you have a husband that values your opinion and values who you are, like Jordan does, I feel like I'm a part of it, even though I'm not the one out there on the field, so.
Jordan Richards and Mary Richards are our guests here on Sports Spectrum. I love to hear journeys, because it really is about the journey when you look back and seeing God's plan, kind of how he weaves his whole grand plan into each of our lives. And I even know that the plan of the fact that how you were even able to meet is a great story. So let's go back a little bit, because when you were in New England, you were drafted second round, 2015, by the Patriots, number 64 overall. Did a little bit of homework. And so you come to New England, and
so proud.
You haven't met, so proud, but you haven't met Mary yet at this point, correct? No. So you're going through your rookie year, and suddenly you meet this girl, Mary. Tell me about how you met her.
Yeah. So I guess the connection of it all is, my mom worked at a church in Sacramento. Worked there. I grew up there. Me and my sister grew up there. She worked there for maybe 18, 20 years. Okay. One of the pastors of our church, Pastor Kent, is Mary's uncle, her dad's brother.
I love that.
And cool. So when I came out to New England, I didn't know anybody who didn't play football who was my age. I knew absolutely nobody. And I didn't have a church home or anything really. and probably maybe halfway through my rookie year, both my mom and Pastor Kent,
my uncle,
Uncle Kent, just encouraged me to reach out to Mary as just to get to know somebody, have some sort of community outside of football.
But wait, was there behind the scenes were they really trying to do a setup, a hookup?
I do not think so. I don't think so at all.
Okay.
I feel like my mom wouldn't lie to me on something like that. Okay. But I truly didn't know anybody outside.
And my uncle knows how my dad is with guys. There's 5 girls in my family, so
good point.
So I was obviously hesitant, and I didn't know Mary. I'd never seen Mary, I was hesitant because that's my pastor's niece.
Sure.
And I kind of blew him off, to be honest, and I didn't contact Mary. And it probably wasn't until, do you want to take credit? I don't want to lie.
You both can share the story.
So I was coaching at Boston College at the time, and I had met him. I had invited him to the Beanpot, and so I decided, I'm not going to go to a game. He had invited me to a game, and I honestly had never watched a full football game in my life.
It was a half-hearted invite.
Yeah, and
to be honest,
so I had tried to.
If you're around, you can come and check out.
I wasn't around. I was working 12-hour days, and I was a strength coach, which we don't sleep. So I was like, I don't have time to go watch a Patriots game. They're going to win anyways.
Right.
And good job, And so I kind of was like, you can come to my Beanpot tournament, which is a big Boston thing. I was thinking, he could meet some of my friends and church community and get him connected so that if he stays in the off season, he can have some non-football related friends. And and so I
think the condition was that I would if we weren't playing the Super Bowl. And so that year
he goes, I'll hang out if we're not in the Super Bowl. Well, that year they didn't make the Super Bowl.
That was the loss to Denver.
That was the one year.
Lost in Denver.
Yes.
And then so I ended up going to one game at the Beanpot. I can't remember, between Northeastern, Harvard, BU, BC.
Yep.
I can't remember who the first game, but it was the women's Beanpot.
Okay.
So I really wanted to go. That's how I'm going to say it. And so we hung out there and met Mary and a lot of her friends.
All my other athletes, because I had teams of different athletes that were there coming through the hockey rink. My volleyball team came up behind me and gave me a huge hug. Jordan's like, how do you know all these people? So
that would be probably the thing that was most attractive about Mary. Was just the amount of people that she knew and loved on her and just couldn't wait to acknowledge her, and she acknowledged everybody, and that was something that was just so attractive to me in terms of her heart for people, and it was just so open, and the joy on her face, and in her smile, and her eyes, was something that I really liked. So
this is January, February-ish of 16.
16, yeah.
You got married in February of 18? Am I right on
March
that?
of 18.
March of 18.
Yeah, March of 18.
So it's only a 2-year span here. Mm-hmm. It's pretty quick, love at first sight type deal, or was it a process in this whole journey?
After the Beanpot, I already had my flight booked to go home, and rookie year was hard.
So he left me.
Rookie year was hard for a lot of reasons, and so I was going home, and I went home, and then I was out at Stanford area.
But he texted me every day.
But we probably talked.
Yeah.
And I texted her every day.
That's cool.
And called me and FaceTimed me, and
so that was for me, a little bit of not too much backstory, but in terms of pursuing somebody, I needed to make sure that kind of my heart was right. And that was something I kind of committed to myself a couple years beforehand. And so it was great to get to know her, at least even, peripherally, get to know her without physically being with her in the same space.
Yeah.
So that was what my heart needed at the time. And so I spent that off season, and we probably talked once a day or at least once every other day. And then when I came back out for off-season program, that's when we actually, for the first time, really hung out together.
He asked me if I wanted to do this thing for real.
And then after a couple months of just hanging out.
And then you made it Facebook official, and then it was really
we don't
real,
have Facebook, but
I don't have Facebook, so.
But we were he definitely was more intentional and dating at that point.
Yeah. That's good.
And it's just been we dated for a year and a couple months. And then he proposed out of the blue. I had no idea. The night before, or a couple nights before, we had our Patriots couples study that we kind of meet, and I had taken a few of my girlfriends who were in my wedding, and I had just started bawling. I can't do this thing anymore. This girlfriend thing. It's just not I can't. I love him. I don't know why he doesn't love me. And da 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 da. And I didn't know that he had already 4 months before that asked my dad to marry me, and he already had a ring, and he was going to propose the next week.
Wow.
So, but I had no idea. He surprised me, and we got engaged in Newport, Rhode Island. So
I love it. Newport is really nice. Yeah. So that's awesome. I'm glad you guys were able to do that. Let me ask you about your faith testimonies. We always ask for testimonies and how people come to know the Lord. Some grow up in church, and some stray, and some have never known the Lord. And it's always fascinating to hear everybody's story and everybody's journey. So give me sort of, I don't like saying cliff notes because then that limits it to having to be quick, because not everybody's journey is a quick story. But let's go through both of your testimonies a little bit, because I think they're both pretty awesome. Okay. Jordan, we'll start with you, and just kind of how you came to know the Lord, and then working through that throughout the years.
So, I guess I preface this because I don't want it, because it's not the biggest deal, but I grew up in the church. Like I said earlier, my mom worked at the church. So we were always around the church. Yeah. And I loved doing it. I got to serve, as I got older. In middle school, got to help out more. In high school, got to be like a small group shepherd for some sixth graders. I got to walk with them through sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade. So church was certainly a big part of my family's life, kind of growing up. But I say that with a big but. To when I got to college and for the first time living on my own. And not having the structure of this is something we do. We go to church on Sunday, and having to find a new church. I didn't prioritize it. And my freshman year, between the summer and into the fall, was really hard. Mm-hmm. And football was really hard, and school was even harder. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't good at something. Like I was really not good. And I'd kind of prided myself on, being the best student I could be, being the best football player I could be, and truthfully, my identity was wrapped up in my, I wouldn't say necessarily accomplishments, but in my ability to be good. And for the first time, really, I wasn't good anymore, and I really had an identity crisis as to like, what am I doing? What's going on? What's wrong? And it really was some teammates of mine who invited me to just a player-led Bible study. And, it was Bible study some days, and some days it was just, let's all get together and grab a meal and just ask how one another's doing. And, the guys, there's probably 5 to 10 guys, and I couldn't name them all. I can name a couple of names. I don't want to short the other guys, but,
sure.
I am forever grateful for just how they reached out to me. And I didn't say anything. And one of those things, somebody asks you, are you good? And you say, yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. Yeah. And I was at a point where I would have said I'm fine, but I was not fine. I was not okay. And I'm just so thankful for those guys. And from there, I got plugged in with a mentor that was on campus at that time. And literally we went like Bible basics, Genesis. Let's start. And I just asked every question I had. And that's why, my heart as it relates to just knowing Christ now, it's not about growing up in church. That doesn't save you by growing up in church. Yeah. It's not about being religious and having all the religious answers, but it's truly about relationship and knowing God and knowing Him personally. And that looks different for everybody. And that's the unique thing about it. And that's what I finally figured out when that mentor literally sat down with me, and we met, from that winter quarter on, my freshman year through my 4 years, once a week. And we just met, and I asked questions, and we read the Bible together. We spoke when that's why I think, I've had such good mentors all throughout my life, even when I didn't really know I hadn't figured it out, even in high school. And I'm just so thankful for those guys, because they are the ones that really helped me to know Christ and truly know, His heart for people. And that's something that Mary's so good at, which is why I was even more attracted to her. So,
isn't it interesting too, though, as guys, you say, how you doing? I'm doing good, but you're not.
Yeah.
But guys just kind of put the mask on and go about our day. And it takes a lot to peel that off, doesn't it? And to go deeper into really what's happening inside a person. That was really important for you, was it? Is that something that you've learned even as you've grown in your faith, how vital that is to really start to tear down these masks and tear down the walls a little bit?
That is, because it's a barrier to relationship. And whether it's spouse relationship, friend relationship, mentor, mentees, that'd be the other way.
Sure.
But the masks, and I really think I heard it, you're lying. When somebody asks you and you're not okay, you're lying, but you start to then believe the lie, but you have no way of helping yourself out of it. Yeah. And it becomes your reality. And so I think the transparency of it all of, this is where I'm at, I need help, or just I need somebody to talk to. I just need somebody to talk to. I need somebody to listen. I need somebody to encourage me. And being real with people, that's, I think we're so accustomed to just put on the facade and just kind of keep it pushing. But
guys aren't good at that.
No, we're not. But yeah. I think in terms of just being true friends, being friends that are really there for people, like you got to let some of that stuff go. You got to be willing to say you're not okay. You got to be willing to ask for help. And that's when things kind of shifted for me during my time at Stanford. And it's not that football got easier all of a sudden or school got easier all of a sudden, but I realized I wasn't alone, and I was thinking I was acting as if I was alone, or I was so maybe proud that I wouldn't ask for help. And so having people around that wanted to be there for me and wanted to encourage me, and finally me letting my guard down and be like, these guys, they want what's best for me, not necessarily as a football player, as a student, but they just want what's best for me, because they can sense I'm hurting, and I am, and I'm trying to tell them I'm not, but I am.
Yeah. Mary, you grew up in Alaska, one of 7. You're an identical twin, and we'll foreshadow what that means in a little bit, maybe towards the end, and the excitement there. But tell us about your walk with the Lord. I know you had a real encounter with God in a similar way, I guess, maybe as Jordan explains, about identity, being in college, kind of being wrapped up in achievement, and all of a sudden, God gets a hold of you. So take us through your process and your testimony.
No, I think, and every time I think about sharing my testimony, I always feel like it changes, because it's like so part of what my heart's kind of doing now. But when I think about it, like for today, I just think that, he's just a God that has been so faithful in my life, and just in every component, whether it's relationship wise, he's, friendships or family. He just has always provided stability for me, and just mentors. And I grew up in a Christian family. I'm one of 7, like you said. So there's no lack of any movements going around. Everyone was doing a lot, but grew up playing ice hockey, actually. And
which makes sense. You're an Alaska girl.
Alaska, you have a pulse, you're on the team. So I definitely took advantage of that. My dream was to play collegiate hockey, and I was working towards that. And when my twin sister and I got recruited to a prep school, the week before we left, we signed, and then the week before I left, I actually ended up shattering my femur. And so we called them and said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything for you. But it was a godsend. They said, a deal's a deal. Both of you guys are coming. So that we'd gotten full ride scholarships to this prep school, and it was a big deal for our family. And Naomi and I just went from Alaska all the way to Connecticut to Kent Prep School. And I rehabbed the whole year, and the whole time I'm thinking, I'm getting doctor's appointments, and my leg isn't healing. It's just taken longer than they thought. And so about 6 or 7 months in, they said that I needed to go get a bone graft to help with the 2 inch. Some of my bone was not fusing, and so I took another month off, and and then about a month later, I ended up going back in to get my bone graft, and they're like, let's just see before we do the bone graft, let's just get an x-ray just to see where the bone, I don't think anything happened because there's been no movement in bone growth, but let's just check it out. Yeah. And so they did the x-ray, and the doctor comes back and says, your bone is is healed. Like there's no sign of any fracture. I don't know what happened.
Wow.
So I have x-ray from like a month before where there's 2 inches of bone like missing. And then I have an x-ray like of it completely healed. The only thing you can see is the rod that they had put in my femur. And so I know that, in that time that, I had people lay hands on me and pray over me. And I do believe I was miraculously healed. And so I did go on to play collegiate sports. I was recruited not to play hockey at the time. I ended up rowing. And it was kind of I learned a few things, that my relationship with Christ and with others, God cares more about the hearts of people, and he cares about our hearts. And I saw that, like, it doesn't matter if I can't compete. Like, I'm not defined by my sport. I'm not marry the hockey player, or marry the ex-hockey player, or marry you name the sport. I'm, marry the child of God, and in the princess and the daughter of the Most High King. I'm called by Him into light, and so I'm excited because I know that He brought me through that to learn that what I do in life cannot define me, and that's played true to both of us. And I think in the coming years, and that will continue to be something that we fall back on for sure. And I also know that during that time I learned that, and I'm still learning, that relationships matter the most to Him, whether it's with His Son, Jesus, or with each other. Doesn't matter if it's a 90-year-old that you want to, she's at a nursing home, or your 2-year-old niece. Like, everyone there's a reason they're here, and God's placed them in your life or in your path for a reason. And I just know that also you just have to choose joy every day. My mom's the best at that. Jordan is too. But, it's one of those things, no matter the circumstance, it's a choice to choose to be on God's kind of plan, the joy plan. It's not, as telling Jordan, like the other day we were talking, it's like, I am naturally happy. Most people would be like, she's like never not happy.
Right.
But it actually, I was telling him, it's actually effort to choose. Like, I feel like I've chosen long before to not allow things to truly get to the spirit of who God's made me to be, which is the joy, which can't be taken from me. So it's not circumstantial. It's just, hopefully that's what people can see through the life of someone who loves Jesus, because that's who He wants us to be, is, children of light, children of, you go into dark places, and like football, you going into the dark places, or you're going into your locker room and you're the light, and you might be the only light. And women, we're going into these places where, like, I'm not sure how to be a wife, I'm not sure how to be a mom, I'm not sure, but like, you're going into these places with light, and because we know Christ. So I'm still obviously on that journey. We've never arrived, but that's kind of like my testimony, and kind of, it's really cool how God's combined our stories to really center around identity. And so we're excited to share with whoever, would hear, really.
Well, you said something interesting too, and Jordan, you can jump in here too if you want, that when we choose joy, that it takes effort, right? Discipline, whatever the word you want to use. In our faith walk, really any kind of walk with the Lord, first of all, it's a choice, and it takes effort.
Yes.
It's not just something that I choose to follow the Lord and I'm good. Just, bring me my soda, feed me some grapes, and fan me, and I'm all set. Like, no, it's an effort and a process here. Take us through that with you guys, because you've been on this journey separately and then together in a walk with the Lord, and through this football world now, this NFL world too, and others encouraging you. Tell me about that, because I'm sure there's times where maybe both of you are just kind of like, I don't really want to do this right now. The effort there. Choosing joy is hard, especially
when you're not sure, like, where he's signing, and
I'm
packing up the house, but I don't know where I'm going.
Right. So what's that like?
Well, we went through that, and we'll continue to, but really, it's, for us, you learn a lot about your spouse. You learn a lot about what makes them tick and where they're at spiritually. And a lot of times it's not even about the issue that's at hand. It's about deeper things. So we've learned that a lot of things that we maybe need to address have, like, deeper rooted things that we need, that were way before this specific issue came up. And so I feel that, you know, no matter, like I said in the beginning, like no matter where we've gone, I know that God's brought people into our life to speak over our lives and call us into whether, you know, into his calling for our life. So like we had some mentors in Atlanta who we met with as regular as they would allow because they had 5 kids. But most weeks that in the off season,
they made time for us.
Yeah.
And like it's just the simple act of the discipline of, hey, let's every, you know, Tuesday morning. Tuesday was our day, but lots of times it would change. But we always had a day, and then we would, you know, that would be the couple. 1 hour would turn into 6 or 5 hours, and they would just be sitting with us, and you know, we'd be hashing out some deep things and some hard laugh hilarious, because it's just hilarious at the end. Like, it's just funny if you're thinking of it. It's like, why is this an issue? You know? But I think that's kind of where, you know, God doesn't, you're not alone in it. Like there's people around you that have been through it, that want to help. And I know we feel blessed and we feel honored that people would spend time with us as a couple to grow in our faith. And we're committed to that the rest of our life. And I think that's what keeps us together. It's like, there's no, we're on the same team. It's not me getting upset with my husband. It's sin that is entering, and you know, it's not, I'm not mad at really him, I'm mad at the sin.
Yeah,
you know, so
sure.
It's not naming him the sin, it's not naming me the sin, it's naming the sin, and calling the enemy, you know, out basically, and saying you're not welcome in this relationship, and then being real with people to really go to the places that you need to really grow spiritually with spiritual disciplines. And so we're both still battling through that. Like, what does spending time together with Christ look like? What does spending time together during football season with Christ look like? What do, you know, all these, and we're you know, we're stumbling along the way, but we're doing our very, very best and
trying to do it together.
Yeah.
Jason, you kind of talked about, you know, choosing joy, and I do think you can choose joy, and that's different than I just want to be happy all the time.
Yeah, no.
But even amongst all that, it's, you know, that's not to minimize the circumstances and situations in which we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And some of those are poor, and some of those are, the outlook might be grim and it's hard.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm continually learning is that, you know, I have to be honest with myself and honest with Mary and honest with people that we've, you know, in our inner circle who are around us to encourage us.
Yeah.
Have to be honest with them about where we're at or where I'm at. And that was the best thing about, you know, Atlanta and some of our time there outside of the football field was the people that we got to sit down with. And, you know, we cried with them, we laughed with them, we got frustrated with one another.
It's mostly me crying.
You know, there were times we left, and it's like we didn't talk in the car, and it's like we need another 4 hours with them. Like, we got to go back.
We got to go back.
We couldn't.
That's awesome.
We had to, like,
set up
work
the
it out.
appointment.
But it was just being real, and like,
Yeah.
And I think that is what I'm now, like, I think our, you know, mission is just trying to be real with one another and with those around us, and trying to make sure that our friends know, whether you got kids, not kids, like, we want to be there with you. And if you'd like us to be there to encourage you as you walk through it, then we'd love to be there for you.
Jordan, what's the toughest part about being a Christian in the NFL?
Toughest part about being a Christian in the NFL? For me, I know it's, and this is something I'm trying to be more extroverted and less shy and more bold.
Yeah.
I know that's something that God's called me to be more bold. And especially leaving New England, where it was comfortable. I knew most of the people there. I was there for 3 years, and then showing up in Atlanta, I only know one person. It's like, wow, like, you know, I don't know how bold I was looking back. That might be something I might need to, you know, journal about and figure out. But now being in Oakland, and putting myself out there, and that's the jump, that's the risk. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, God's always with you in that. And he's standing right beside you. He's holding your hand through it. And he's not going to lead you to a place that he doesn't want to take you if you're willing to just walk with him. So I think for me, the hardest part of being a Christian is just being bold and stepping out there and stepping out in faith. And whether it's inviting guys to church or just, how I'm trying to carry myself. And I think, and just being inviting and being a teammate. I want to be a teammate. I can be a teammate to anybody and everybody. And nobody feels judged by me. Nobody feels like I'm somebody's going to condemn them for past, present, future actions. And that's how I'd want to be treated. Because, there's certainly plenty of sin in my life and has been, and unfortunately there will be. And I'm trying my best to get my heart right with the Lord and have Him continually mold me and shape me.
Does it help to have a quarterback who's outspoken about his faith and the leader of your team in Derek Carr? And again, it's only been a few months that you've been there, but I'm sure you've connected with him and his wife, and just knowing that, okay, our leader here on the offense, maybe for the whole team, the guy who's getting paid the most money and has been the face of the franchise now the last few years, is an outspoken man of faith. And so if he can be bold, why can't I? Has that helped you?
Yeah, certainly. And Derek and his wife, Heather, are awesome. And we're so, excited for the time that we've gotten with them and going to church with them or hanging out at their house. And just they've been so open with their family and their kids. And that's something that encourages us for sure and makes us feel welcome. And, it is really cool to have that as your quarterback, and just the transparency and the teammate he is, and just who he is. And I'm proud of him for that. I think that there are a couple that we're praying for, we just love their heart for the Lord. And the guy that he is, the teammate that he is to everyone, is something that I didn't know Derek personally at all. I'd heard of Derek, I'd heard about Derek and his faith, but just to get to see it and experience it is really, I think, a cool experience for both of us. And his wife's, Heather's awesome as well.
Mary, are you aware that the Oakland Raiders are the Hard Knocks team this year?
Oh, I'm so aware. I tried to.
Are you all set on this? Because there's going to be, you think a podcast like this is hard, there's going to be HBO cameras inside your guys' houses talking to you about your journey.
I saw that they were trying to ask people to be, they're trying to get in everyone's life, but
sure,
it is a platform.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. It's a cool platform.
I see that as it's people's entertainment. In the beginning, it's going to be funny, and then towards the end, it's going to get a little sad when people start getting released, and that's just the reality of football. And I've learned that, and and so I think in terms of just vulnerability, I think it's a good opportunity to take a kind of a. I don't really watch TV. We don't even have cable this year intentionally. But I know that God's going to use it if we allow ourselves to be vessels in it. So, and when I say we, I mean you, Jordan. But
there's a lot of wives featured on these.
I doubt that.
And
so I'll be praying about what my involvement will be in that. But for me, it's just if I do have an opportunity to speak about Christ and they keep it on if they keep it on the show, awesome. Yeah. If not, they can take it right out. But it is just kind of, it shows you the entertainment factor of football for people. And so I've spoken to a few wives, and I know that some of them on the edges on the bubble are kind of, it's just harder for them, as the reality is they're going to get cut on live TV.
It's their livelihood.
So, So, and that's hard. So I feel for both parties, and I guess I'll be on the outskirts or the other side, whereas their tears are happening, real life tears. Yeah. I'll be on that side more than I'm concerned about what other people are probably watching, even though I'm excited that, HBO is thinking the Raiders. My husband's a star, basically. They wanted to film him. His life is so interesting. Yeah. So they're he doesn't have an
loud,
Instagram.
Boisterous personality.
His loud voice. He's
unbelievable.
He's gonna be the star of this show. I'm so proud of him. But so whatever happens. Yeah. Cool.
You have a lot of cameras on you in your career anyways. I mean, you played in a Super Bowl. You played in Rose Bowls. You've had a lot of opportunities to be seen by a lot of people in the work that you do and playing sports. So have they prepped you? Have they told you just kind of, this is what it's going to be like? There's going to be a camera following you as you're going to your locker, as you're going to your house, maybe driving away. Or has that really not happened yet? As we're taping this here in late June.
As of late June, nobody said anything to me.
Okay.
But I mean, truthfully, I've not watched Hard Knocks.
Okay.
Yet.
Never watched any episodes.
No,
never. I didn't even.
And I wouldn't say we don't
known.
have cable intentionally, not as a result of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, no.
Sure.
I'm more just cheap.
Cheap.
And I'm tired of getting hit with like cable bills.
Yeah.
Like
New team, $500 bill. Oh.
DirecTV's killing me right now.
Yes.
I'm still paying for Comcast in New England.
So, cut the cord, man. Cut the cord.
And I don't watch TV, so.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying. My prayer, I think, for both of us is that regardless of who's watching, camera here, camera there, wherever, that I'm as authentically I can be me.
Just play your role, right?
Yeah, exactly. And just trying to be the teammate that I want to be and teammate that God's called me to be and compete as best I can. And, I know God wants me to be excellent in what I do and who I am. So I'm going to do my best on the field and do my best to be the best teammate I can be.
And the best TV person you can be.
And I don't care.
The truth comes out.
Somebody wants me to
listen.
I'm so excited to be a star.
The Raiders are fascinating this year, though, and that's when they got Hard Knocks. I think I said something on Twitter like, "This is going to be amazing television because you have so many personalities, but you also have so many new faces. A lot of eyeballs were on the Raiders. Period. Now you get to kind of see them really up close, and certainly your head coach, who worked at the same company as I worked at for many years. He's amazing in its own right, and he's going to play up to those cameras. It's going to be awesome. So I'm really excited to watch the dynamic of the Raiders, remembering that this isn't about Hard Knocks in 4 weeks. This is about the journey and the goal.
Exactly.
And I love that.
And going further.
And it's really cool being a part of something as we're trying to turn it around.
Yeah.
And to learn how to win, figure out how to win. And like you said, there's so many new faces, whether it's free agent guys, draft picks, guys we traded for.
But a lot of talent.
And exactly, there's a lot of talent on our football team. So I'm excited as we go into camp and we, grind and compete against one another and see our team form. And just excited for what this year has to offer in Oakland, because I certainly there is a whole lot of talent. But talent doesn't win football games by itself.
Absolutely. So you would know better than anybody who's been on a team with the Patriots that went to 3 straight Super Bowls now, and has won 2 out of the last 3. Let me ask you about a different team that's growing, and it's the Richards team, because it's Jordan and Mary, but there's 2 more coming. Yeah. Because I alluded to this earlier, that you are a twin, an identical twin, and I didn't know this until we were riding in the car yesterday, but the family is about to go from just husband and wife to a little bit more.
We're having twins in January.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How exciting is that?
It's really exciting.
Yeah. It's
twins.
Twins, Jordan.
There's
2.
Everybody we get the story. I thought I was supposed to skip a generation, like with Mary and Nao being twins. And so I'm supposed to skip us to our kids, but apparently we get them now. So
we get them now.
I'm excited. It's funny. People ask me if I was scared, nervous, shocked. I was not. I don't know. I wasn't scared, and that's me. We're saying.
You know what? I think you'll be scared when you're walking home with 2 babies in your arms.
Yeah,
that's scary.
And I can't feed either of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Feed all of them.
But just the I mean, obviously, I married a twin, and I love Mary, and obviously, I love Nao too, and just. I know I've gotten to see both of them together, and not that all twins are the same.
We're best friends. So.
I think it has always crossed my mind that maybe twins is an option, or it could happen for us, and that's gonna be something I'm excited for. So I don't know. We don't know gender, and that'll be something we'll figure out later. But
the due date is around January?
It's supposed to be January 21st, but they say, or 25th, but they say the twins come early, so they're thinking January 1st. So.
What happens in January into February?
Well, we're going to be in the Super Bowl. So
with 2 tiny babies.
In February, so I mean, I'll be taking care of that, and you could play football.
So we're excited. We're really excited. I
can see them in their first plane trip going to South Beach, going to Miami, where the Super Bowl is.
Miami, that's right.
Super Bowl 2020 is in Miami.
Mind that.
Yeah, that's not terrible.
We're excited. It's, again, they're just, sitting in there, and it's not like there's anything I can do.
I know, but it's
right
so
now,
cool.
So we're, I guess just prepare and.
Yeah,
I know that they're there.
I'm sure people.
I'm sure you do.
I'm sure people will send us all kinds of ridiculous children apparatuses and strollers and joggers and all kinds of things that we need. That we don't.
Well, it's one thing to become parents of a child. It's another thing to just double that right off the bat.
Yeah.
And so it'll be awesome. We're excited for you guys. Let's close with this question. We asked this to all of our guests here on the podcast. I'm curious to where your answers are. So we'll start with Mary, ladies first here on this one. What is God teaching you today? What are you learning from the Lord in the season of life that he has you in right now? What is he teaching you?
This is good. Well, so I actually shared this a few times during this Utah trip here.
Yeah.
And it's, even just being pregnant for the first time and noticing that fear, there's a lot of unspoken fears that I'm sure almost every new mom experiences with their just pregnancies and all those things. So I'm learning again, and I'm sure I'll continue to learn this, but today I am learning again to just every time that I feel sick or nauseous or whatever it is that my hormones are feeling, I am pressing into believing that God's already done it. Like he has taken care of this. He is already God over this. And I think that's what I'm learning today. I just had a conversation with someone on our trip into the Park City here, but I feel like right now it's been like the most exciting thing that I've been through. But it's like the most exhausting thing that I've been through.
It's going to get more exhausting.
Yeah, it's going to get more exhausting. So today it's just pressing into knowing that God's got me and he's got our family, and he has, before the foundation of the world, he saw these babies, and he's going to, grow them, but whether I, am fearful or not. So I'm just going to choose to trust him, just like everything you have to choose to trust him. And I struggle with that, but today I'm choosing to trust him.
That's awesome.
Again.
Jordan, what are you learning from the Lord?
I got two things. I know you said once. I got two.
It's all right.
One, and this is the thing I've been struggling and failed miserably as of late, and I had to confess this to Mary, is being tender and patient.
Ephesians 4.
as she's growing our children in her baby farm, I need to be tender and patient when her hormones are telling her one thing and she wants this. I go get it, then she doesn't want it. And and just all those little things. And not trying to coach my wife, because I'm not my wife's coach. So I'm her husband. So just adjusting my tone sometimes and not being frustrated and being a servant, because that's what God's called me to do as a husband, is being a servant. So that's number one. Number two, just as we're here at this conference and getting to meet some NHL players and just encourage them on their journey as they go into their locker rooms, and obviously it's a smaller locker room, and just the believers on their team, encourage them to continue to try and step out in their faith. And I just I love their hearts for the Lord and their desire to be here, and that's my prayer for those guys, is that they continue to be lights in the locker room, and that, wherever they're at, as they're planting seeds with other players on their team, that they're encouraged along the way, and that if the two of us can be of any support or encouragement to them. And just, my mission right now is just being a real friend to people.
That's good.
And just, in the hard and the good, in the trials and the triumphs, is how can we be real friends to people?
Yeah, in a society where everybody's friends on social media, real friendship is missing, and so that's really good. Jordan and Mary Richards, this is great. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. Congrats on your two new little ones. Yay. And going to be following you guys along, starting with Hard Knocks, but all throughout the 2019 season. Wish you both nothing but the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And many thanks to Jordan and Mary Richards for joining us here on Sports Spectrum. Weren't they great? Such an awesome couple, and excited for them. They're expecting twins in January, and I'm grateful for them that they were willing to trust us and to share that news with us at Sports Spectrum. And Mary is a part of our ministry here at Pro Athletes Outreach, the parent organization for Sports Spectrum. And so we love her, and we're grateful for her, and certainly grateful for Jordan, and looking forward to watching him play this year in 2019 with the Oakland Raiders and seeing how God uses him both on the field and off the field, away from the field, for his glory. So many thanks to Jordan and Mary Richards for being here on Sports Spectrum. We wish them both nothing but the best. Thanks to Compassion International as well for sponsoring and partnering with us here at Sports Spectrum. You've heard about them, you know about them, but I cannot reiterate it more how amazingly awesome it is to sponsor a child across the world who is in need of food, education, medical care, and vocational training. Think about it, a child in need, in poverty, and you and I can make that difference for basically a cup of coffee a day, maybe even a little bit less. It's $38 a month. $38 tax-deductible donation sponsorship allows you and I to help release a child from poverty. For more information, go to compassion.com/sportsspectrum, compassion.com/sportsspectrum. You'll see a list of children there. Pray about it, talk to your family, and then consider releasing a child from poverty. It'll be the best decision you ever make with your money. Go to compassion.com/sportsspectrum and sponsor a child today. Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast with Jordan and Mary Richards. We love you guys. Go to the website, sportspectrum.com. Check it out. Lots of articles there. All of our podcast content is there as well. You can also find that on our YouTube channel and certainly on our social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. But the website is really the home base for Sports Spectrum. That's where every piece of content can be found. And we have archival content that goes back 20, 30 years on that website. Lots of fun stuff there. So check it out over at sportspectrum.com. And then I want to encourage you guys to subscribe to our magazine. It's just $18 for an entire year, and it's a quarterly magazine. You get 4 issues plus a couple bonus issues. So it's really about 6 issues that you will receive for just $18. Check out the website and consider subscribing today. It's $18. Go to sportspectrum.com and subscribe to the magazine. You'll love it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time here on Sports Spectrum's podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your day.